He had a 4.0 GPA, a standing job offer from a Fortune 500 company, and he was sitting in his car in the parking lot of his own apartment building, trying to remember how to breathe. It was 2:47 a.m. He'd been sitting there for an hour. And the promotion he'd just gotten? The one he'd spent the last 6 years of his life chasing? He was about to call his boss and turn it down. But that's not the insane part. The insane part is what happened the next morning when he showed up to work anyway. Let me back up. Because this didn't start with a promotion. It started with a piece of paper. A piece of paper that his boss slid across a mahogany table at 9:47 a.m. on a Tuesday. Just a piece of paper with a number on it. That's all. A single number that was bigger than any number he'd ever seen next to his own name. And when he looked at it, he didn't feel joy. He didn't feel pride. He felt a drop in his stomach. He felt like he'd just realized he left the stove on. Except the stove was his entire life, and he'd left it on for years without knowing it. But here's where it gets weird. He wasn't the only one. There was a study, a Stanford study, actually, and I'll come back to it. But the short version is they tracked people who got promoted and measured their happiness over the next 2 years. Guess what they found? If you guessed that they got happier, you're wrong. If you guessed they stayed the same, you're wrong. If you guessed they became significantly less happy on average and started sleeping worse and fought with their partners more, you are exactly right. And these were smart people, driven people, people who had been aiming at that finish line for years. They got the thing they wanted, and they got more miserable. But wait, there's a twist. And the twist is where this gets really dark. Because the guy in the parking lot, he'd known that study existed. He'd read it. He'd memorized it. So when his boss slid that piece of paper across the table, a piece of paper that was supposed to be his golden ticket, he felt dread, not joy. He felt a trap door opening. And that's when he started noticing it everywhere. The CEO who was on his third divorce, the VP who hadn't taken a day off in 400 consecutive days, the director who woke up at 4:30 a.m. to check email even though nobody asked her to. He started to realize that the very people he was supposed to be aspiring to be, they were the ones who looked the most hollow. But you have to ask yourself, at what point does winning become losing? And here's the thing nobody talks about. The thing nobody talks about because it's terrifying. Most promotions aren't a prize. They're a cancellation. What do I mean by that? I mean they cancel your old life. They cancel your identity. They cancel the person you were before the job title. And that's the part that nobody tells you. They tell you you got the promotion as if it's an addition. But it's not. It's a subtraction. It's a subtraction of all the things you used to be, all the things you used to have time for, all the things you used to feel. And this isn't, like, wishy-washy career advice. This is neuroscience. This is real, measurable biology. And the number is 30. Wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me go back to the year of the promotion. There's a guy, we'll call him R. Not his real name, but R. R was a software engineer. He was good, really good. He was one of those guys who could see the architecture of a system in his head, the way other people see a city skyline. He got promoted to team lead. And the day after he got promoted, he showed up to work and he opened his laptop. And something was wrong. His hands were shaking. His hands were shaking. This guy, who was famous for his calm, who people called the Zen master because he never lost his cool. His hands were shaking. And they wouldn't stop. And he couldn't figure out why. He kept asking himself, what is wrong with me? And then the weirdest thing happened. He started crying at his desk. Just sitting there, at 10:02 a.m., in an open office, tears streaming down his face, not even making a sound. And nobody said a thing. Nobody looked at him. Because they knew. They all knew. They knew what happened to people who got promoted. But it's not the workload. That's the boring explanation. It's not the stress. That's the easy answer. The thing that destroys you isn't the work, it's the identity. Because the moment you get promoted, someone else takes your old job. Someone else does the thing you used to do. The thing you were good at. The thing that gave you a sense of purpose and competence. It's gone now. You didn't just get a different job, you lost the job you knew how to do. It's a demotion disguised as a reward. And by the time I realized he wasn't crying because he was overwhelmed, he was crying because he was irrelevant. Because he didn't know who he was anymore. Now here's the part one promised. The study. The one with the 30. A group of researchers asked people, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you want a promotion? And the average was a 9. Everybody wants to climb. It's like we're hardwired for it. Then, they asked them a different question. They said, okay, but are you willing to trade one of your most important relationships for it? Are you willing to trade your mental health? Are you willing to trade your sense of self? And the number that people said yes to was shocking. It was a 30. Over 30% of people said yes to trading their mental health for the promotion. 30%. And then they took that data and they tracked them. And those 30%, they were the ones who got promoted the fastest. They were the high performers, the go-getters, the ones who got the corner office, The ones who ended up crying in parking lots at 2:47 a.m. But wait, there's a deeper layer. A layer so dark that psychologists call it the winner's curse. And the winner's curse is a psychological phenomenon that suggests that people who win a competitive prize often end up valuing it less after they win it than they valued it before, because the effort to get it was so high that the prize itself can't possibly live up to what they sacrificed. So now you're in a position you fought for, that you bled for, but the position itself is less than the sum total of what you gave up to get there. You overpaid, and your brain knows it. Your brain knows you got a bad deal, and it punishes you with a low-grade sense of regret that you can't explain. And that regret doesn't look like regret. It looks like anxiety. It looks like irritability. It looks like burnout. And this is where the story of the guy in the parking lot gets dark. Because he turned down the promotion. He sat in the parking lot. He called his boss at 8 a.m. and he said, "I can't do it." And he expected to feel relief. He expected to feel like he dodged a bullet. And he did, for a moment. But by lunchtime, he started to feel something else. Something worse. He felt ashamed. He felt like a coward. He felt like he'd rejected the only thing that was supposed to validate his existence. And he couldn't figure out which feeling was worse, the dread of the promotion or the shame of turning it down. And then he called his best friend. And his best friend said, "Are you insane? You turned down a promotion?" And something snapped. Because that's when he realized that the trap isn't the promotion. It's the story we tell ourselves about the promotion. It's the belief that there's a finish line, that there's a point where you arrive and everything is okay. That's the trap. It's the promise of arrival. And it's a lie. It's the most effective lie ever told. Because the moment you get promoted, the line just moves. There's a new role above you. There's a new target. You are exactly as far from the finish line as you were before, except now you're expected to be grateful for it. And being expected to be grateful makes you feel ungrateful. And ungrateful people don't feel happy. They feel anxious. They feel like imposters. But here's the part that gets worse. This isn't just career advice. This is the skeleton key to understanding something bigger. Because the same process that happens to a person when they get a promotion, the exact same structure, happens to a person when they move to a new city, when they buy a house, when they get married, when they have a child. It's the loss of self, the sacrifice of self to a new role. The new role asks, "Who are you?" And the old you can't answer. So you have to invent a new you. And a new you is a stranger. It takes years to get to know a new you. And there's no guarantee you'll like them. I want to pause for a second. Because if you're watching this and you feel stuck, if you feel like you got the thing you wanted and you're still not happy, I need you to know something. You're not broken. You're not ungrateful. You're not a failure. You are reacting exactly as a human being would react to the loss of self. It's not a flaw. It's a design. And recognizing that design, seeing it for what it is the only way to stop running on the hamster wheel. But here's the promise. There's a way out. And it is not what you think. It's not quitting. It's not climbing higher. It's something else entirely. It's about finding what you actually want, separate from what you think you want. And to find that, you have to do the scariest thing of all. You have to ask the question nobody asks because they're terrified of the answer. And the question is, what am I actually trying to get? And then, you have to sit in the silence. And you have to listen. And what you might hear is terrifying. Because it's not a number. It's not a title. It's not a salary. It's a feeling you had once. And you're chasing a promotion to get it back. And the promotion, you have to realize that the promotion is just a symbol. It's just a stand-in. The real thing you want is already inside you. It was there before you got the first job. It was there before you started competing. It's the thing that you actually love. So the final question. The question that the guy in the parking lot finally asked himself at 2:47 a.m. He asked, "If I wasn't chasing this, what would I be doing?" And it took him 3 years. 3 years of therapy, 3 years of deconstructing, 3 years of walking away from things he didn't actually want. And he finally found it. The thing he actually loved. It was sitting in his basement. He found it in a box of old photos. He was a photographer. He used to take pictures of people laughing. Not portraits, just moments. He loved it more than anything. He was good at it. He was the calmest person in the room when he was behind a camera. He quit the Fortune 500 job. He is a professional photographer now. And he makes less than half what he used to. And he's never been happier. I know that sounds like a cliche. I know that sounds like a fairy tale. But I looked him in the eye when he told me. He wasn't selling anything. He was terrified of telling me. He was afraid I'd think he was crazy. But he told me anyway. And he smiled. Not a fake smile. Not a, "I'm trying to convince myself" smile. A real, genuine, unguarded smile. So the question is, what's in your basement?